In January of this year, just about every single Arsenal fan was crying out for one thing from this Arsenal team, and that was a striker, a world-class finisher who could win us games in pivotal moments and score some important goals. And coming off 3 pathetic performances, one against West Ham at home where we lost 2-0, one against Fulham where we lost 2-1 in Craven Cottage, and then one in a 2-0 home loss to Liverpool in the FA Cup. And in all 3 of those games, it was clear as day that we needed a striker. We were creating far more chances, we took far more shots, and had a higher XG in every single one of those games, yet we lost all 3 of them. It was clear as day that we needed a striker in the January transfer window. Nketiah just wasn't good enough, Jesus couldn't score a goal to save his life, and our team, but mainly our attack, was just god awful at times and a painful excuse for even a top 4 level attack. It was really not good to watch. Yet after those games, we had a 2-week break. We did nothing in the January transfer window, yet we came back, and by far and away, we were the best team in the league for at least the second part of the season. Our attack was out of this world. I mean, we saw ourselves score 21 goals in our next 5 games in the league, and we went on to finish second in the league, finishing as the second highest goal scorers in the league, 5 goals behind Man City. And we had seemingly put all our attacking woes behind us in the second half of the season. Kai Havertz had some world-class performances and finished his first season at Arsenal by scoring 13 goals in the league, with only one of them being a penalty. Saka got himself 16 goals in the league. Trossard got himself 12 goals in the league. In the attacking front, we went from absolutely god-awful attack to one of the best attacks in all of Europe, just like that. So headed into this summer's transfer window, although there was definitely still some cries for a world-class striker, it maybe didn't seem the top of any Arsenal fans' transfer list. And now with us being in August, looking like we might even keep Eddie Nketiah after rejecting multiple bids from Marseille and not being heavily linked to any strikers. Of course we are linked, but we're not heavily linked to any strikers. Is there a world where Arsenal don't bring in a striker in this transfer window? And if that is the case, could Arsenal still thrive without another striker in this transfer window? Well, that's what we'll be talking about today. So what's going on, everyone? You are listening to Gun Essential here. I hope you're all doing well. Please be sure to like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and let's get into it. Now, first things first, as far as do we have strikers in the squad? Of course we have strikers. We have enough players that can play at striker, on paper at least, that we don't really need to go out and get a striker. Kai Havertz, of course, he is a 10, but in my eyes, Kai Havertz's best position, I'm sure we can all agree, is when he plays up front in the middle of the front 3 as our striker. Gabriel Jesus, of course, can play at striker. He can also play out wide, but he is a striker. And Eddie Nketiah, of course, is a striker. And then even if 3 strikers in your squad isn't good enough, we still have someone like Leandro Trossard, who, yes, hasn't played as striker since the first half of the season, but he is a good enough striker that can play as a striker in important games. He did that against Liverpool when needed. He is a good enough striker. He can come on for Havertz if needed up top. We overall in this squad, on paper at least, have 4 players that can play as striker: Havertz, Jesus, Nketiah, and Trossard. For me, Trossard is even a better striker than Nketiah because I'm not really that big of a fan of Nketiah. The more that he stays at his club, the more I'm a little bit disliking him. I think he's 25 years old. It's time for him to go, but under the right price only. So I do agree with Arsenal rejecting the bids. Now, on paper, then you would say, well, we don't actually need a striker. Yes, none of them are world-class strikers. Even Havertz, as much as I love Havertz, he's probably my favorite player in the squad right now. He's not a world-class striker. If he has a season where he scores 25 Premier League goals, well, then you can put him in the world-class striker department. But as of right now, to me, he's not a world-class striker. He's just kind of a secondary striker that's been thrust into the limelight and put as your poaching striker. Jesus, of course, is your striker, although he does like to drop deep. Nketiah is a poaching striker. Trossard can play as a poaching striker. As far as amount of players that can play striker, Arsenal are good on that front. Now, if we do sell Eddie Nketiah, now let's just say Marseille come in with a better bid around the £30 million mark, which is what we're looking for. Well, in my eyes, then another striker will be needed, because then being down to just 2 strikers, maybe 3 if you include Trossard, for a whole season, including Champions League, FA Cup, Carabao Cup, and Premier League, and you want to compete in all 4 of those fronts, well, then we're going to need another striker if we do sell Eddie Nketiah. Again, I don't think it's likely that we sell Eddie Nketiah off of all the reports I'm reading, which, I mean, I don't hate. It's not great. Nketiah has 2 years left on his deal. I think now is the perfect time to sell him. We have leverage to sell him, but I think we can't just sell him for whatever price we get. It has to be around £30 million for me. Anything less, I don't know. I know a lot of you guys just want Nketiah to be sold, and I hear that. I want Nketiah to be sold as well, but it has to be under the right price. Again, he has 2 years left on his deal, so now would be the perfect time. But next season, it's not hard to imagine that another team comes in with 20 million pounds that Marseille are offering right now, and then we can sell him then anyway. Especially because if we do sell Eddie Nketiah, we're gonna need another striker. We will be light up front, at least just a little bit. Even if that means we bring in another young kind of youth striker, that is fine. Now onto Havertz, for me, is our number one striker. Yes, Jesus looked good in pre-season, I'll get to that. But for me, Kai Havertz should be Arsenal's number one striker going into the season. Now, Kai Havertz at times has proven to be an elite striker. I remember when we brought him in and I said he could be a good player, could be a really good sign-in if we find the right system for him or the right role. And I didn't think the right system or the right role would be to play up front as your striker. Yes, he had some good moments at Leverkusen playing as a secondary striker. He had some decent moments at Chelsea. I mean, he scored the Champions League winning goal as a secondary striker. But I never expected him to actually, his best position, his best role for this Arsenal team, by far and away be a striker. He's an elite striker on his day when he's playing really well. And in the second half of the season, he was arguably one of the better strikers in the whole Premier League with his output, with the amount of times he scored in big games. He scored some crucial goals. It's just, we need to find a way, hopefully he can this season, to just make sure that he can sustain that elite run for a whole season. Because if he could replicate that second half of the season for a whole season this season, then 20 Premier League goals, Kai Havertz can definitely achieve that. And that for me would be a huge plus, and it would be a huge driving factor for Arsenal potentially winning the Premier League. So I think if we can make Kai Havertz stay confident throughout the whole season, if he can keep on a good run, it's not hard to imagine Kai Havertz getting 20 Premier League goals in the season. Now on to Gabriel Jesus. Gabriel Jesus looks firing after pre-season. Of course, he got a goal against Manchester United, but outside of that, his overall game looks really good. Obviously, he said that he had a knee injury throughout the whole last season and he just wasn't quite comfortable. But this season, he had no knee injury in the off-season. He had all this time to train and he's looking good. He's looking fit. He's looking sharp on the ball. His dribbling looks really, really good again. The one issue I have with Gabriel Jesus is that he doesn't shoot soon enough. He likes to dribble a little bit too long and then either loses the chance or just completely shanks it or gets blocked or something. But I think one thing I'd tell Gabriel Jesus is just to take your shot a little bit earlier. But I think Havertz and Gabriel Jesus as your two striking options are really good, with Nketiah as a third option. I think that's a really good striking core to go into the season with. Is a Premier League winning against someone like Erling Haaland? No. But again, if the rest of our squad can play elite, if we can have one of the best defenses in the league again, well then I don't think a world-class striker is absolutely a must. Now again, I would love Victor Osimhen. I would love Victor Gyökeres. Of course I would. But we have to be reasonable. Both of them will cost so much money. Solanke is going to cost so much money. There isn't any really cheap options out there. I know Ivan Toney, he still has a year left on his Brentford deal, so we could go in and snatch him up, especially with no one looking to buy him. But I don't think at the age of 28 years old, Ivan Toney is the perfect guy to come up front for us. I'm not saying anything bad about Ivan Toney. He's a good striker, a good finisher. I just don't know if he's the perfect guy for us. It's going to cost a lot of money to go in and get a world-class striker. And I think with the guys that we have right now, Havertz, Jesus, Nketiah, even Trossard up front, I don't think a world-class striker is a must. Instead, I think we should worry about maybe getting in a right winger. I think that is a must before we go get ourselves a striker. Of course, I would like a striker, but at the right price, and it has to be the right profile of the player. Julian Alvarez, we were linked to him, but look how much he costed for Atleti. It just wouldn't make sense at all.